Hello and welcome to the Boston Ramesh channel. Today I have learned how to configure application security in ServiceNow. This section is part of the module 5 in the application development fundamentals course. I have learned some basic fundamentals of how to control user access to applications, menus, modules, records, and then fields. Let's see how I created the mind map to explain all these details. ServiceNow's security implementation is a very big topic and a very complex one. For any aspiring ServiceNow application developer, it's very important to understand these fundamentals. And I was going through this module. I found it is very confusing in the beginning. So I had to go through this at least 2 times and make sure that I'm understanding these concepts correctly. And then after that, I tried my best to put together this mind map to make it easy for me as well as anybody watching this. So let me go through this one by one. It's going to be a very simple one. It's not going to be a deep dive. I just go through um, the notes that I have put together and I try to explain what I learned. I hope you get some value out of it. So what exactly we are trying to control? We are trying to control the access to specific items. So in this case, we are talking about application menus, modules, records, and fields. And then the most important thing is when you are restricting access, then you need to know who are the users. So users are identified based on their roles. So when a user logged into the service now, they will be doing something specific operation, right? There may be a fulfiller or a requester. So a requester is a customer or the end user, and a fulfiller is an administrator. So if that is what is as simple as we can get to the roles, so a fulfiller or a requester will have different roles. That means they should have different access permissions to application menus, modules, records, and fields. That is the most easy way to understand the security. And then let's look at what tools are available. So we talk about access control. So access control in itself is an object. So we'll look into that. So to create an access control, the system administrator or the application developer should have a specific elevated permission called security_admin. And without this elevated admin privilege, we cannot really edit or create ACL in the studio. So what type of actions that we are trying to control on a specific object inside the service now? So usually anything that you see in ServiceNow is stored in a table. So a table is an object. So in table, we have records, multiple records, and then we have multiple fields in each record. So in any case, anything that as a user, when we interact with the data, either we are creating or reading, updating or deleting these artifacts. So either you are creating a new record or you are actually opening a record and looking at it, or you are updating a field, or you're deleting a specific record. So these are the actions, and we need to access those. We need to control those actions with the access control. So we will see when we open an ACL, but basically these are the key components that we need to understand. As I said, ACL will have a specific object name, for example, a table called incident. That's a table, that's an object. And what type of operations we are trying to do. There can be any of the CRUD operations like create, update, read, and delete. And then what kind of permissions we need. We need definitely have a role identified that for that ACL, for example, ITIL role. And then some conditions, we can have specific conditions. Then we may probably execute some specific scripts to make that part of the ACL. So I think understanding ACL rules was the biggest challenge for me. uh, it took a lot of time for me to really understand these ACL rules. And if you have gone through this already, you know what I'm talking about. If you are watching this, or if you are trying to understand this for the first time, I'm sure that you have to go through this multiple times to understand for yourself, because I think everybody will understand the same subject in a different perspective. But end of the day, what we need to understand here is there are rules. These rules applies to table and the records inside the table. If we need to really understand in a simple manner, the table.none is a rule, right? So this rule applies to all table records. That means if the table.none is mentioned, then whoever is having the role and ACL, then they can actually access all the records, that role. And then table.field, this applies to only one field on a record. And if access to a row is allowed, but the field is denied, the field is not visible. So this again, we can explain that in an example. And what is the table dot star? Just like in SQL, select star means everything, right? So in a table, star means that row, all fields on a record will be accessible in that ACL if the ACL is given to a row. But what we need to understand here is that there is a logic. If on the table, on a row, if there is a restriction on a field, and then in the same ACL, if there is a table dot star rule applied, then this table dot field, whatever that field, will be excluded from the visibility. So I think this is a little bit complex here, but when you see the example, you will understand. So how does a user gets access to an object? So the system has to go through several steps. That means there is evaluation process. So when a user requests in ServiceNow to access a specific object, say for example, if a user is trying to open a incident record, so what should have happened? So that is the evaluation process. The system is going to check the logged in user, the user's permissions, the roles, and then cross checking the object's permissions, and then matching them, and then evaluating them, and then make sure if the user can access that object or not, and then provide the appropriate result to the user. The user may see a message saying that you don't have access, or it will show the user a specific record based on the access privilege that is there. So let's see what is the ACL evaluation process here. ServiceNow provides a beautiful explanation here. I will go through this quickly. So when a user requests access to an object, then find ACL rules matching that object. So the system is looking at if there is a ACL applied to that object. Then if there is no ACL, then it will say, okay, grant user access to the object, because if there is no ACL means then that is available for everyone. Okay, so that is the logic. I was confused in the beginning, but now I see the evaluation process. When it evaluates, there is no ACL applies to an object, then it is open to everyone. But when it finds there is even a single permission, then it will make sure that is evaluated and then further processed. So in this case, if a match found, there is an ACL on the object, then it will check the user. Does the user have one of these required roles? If there is no role available for the user, then it will deny user access to the object. And then if the user have one of the required roles to access the object, then there is the condition. If the condition is true, yes, then it will go through, does the script return true value? Yes, and then grant user access to the object. In any case, if there is no access, even at this stage, then it will deny the user to access the object. So that is the ACL evaluation process. So ACL rule only grants when user must have one of the roles in the required list of roles list. If the list is empty, this condition evaluates to true. So that is basically, open for everyone. And then there must be a security attribute evaluation true, and the data condition must be true, and the script condition must be true when they are available. If there is nothing, then it won't be checking anything. So there is a ServiceNow's provided tool called Access Analyzer. I don't really have an option to actually look at it, but I'm just providing it here for future reference. And then we can debug the access control. So by enabling the debug security rules, we can look at each field uh, access evaluation on the screen. So it's really, really helpful. And then from a server-side scripting perspective, there are different ways we can write scripts to control who can see these conditions when they evaluate to true. Only that ACL will uh, enable the user to access the object. So if, let's say, for example, if we say in the condition of an ACL, if the user current dot can create, that means the user can create. If there is a permission that is available, then the script will evaluate and then provide access to the user to that object. So here is how I understood the concept of ACL rules. So it's a little bit repetitive, but I think this helped me to really, really solidify my understanding of the security fundamentals. So again, the ACL rule table.none, it says provide access to all records in a table, and table.star is provide access to all fields in a record. In table.field, provide access to only one field in a row. And in a combination of these three, the results are different. And that's where I got confused in the beginning, but I hope these um, diagrams will help anybody to understand, because if I'm able to understand it, I believe anybody can understand. So this green table that we are saying here is, this is a table. Let's assume that is a table. Then table.none means the user have access to the table. And then table.star, these are the three fields in a row, in a record. That means table.star means field one, which is, say, for example, name is the field name, description is another field name, and the location is the field three name. So if the table.star is given, then the user or the ACL will have access to these two fields. However, when in that ACL, if the ACL says there is another ACL a rule says table.field on a specific table.location, so that location field is only visible to the user if the user has this table.field access. So that's what the understanding is. So let's look at these two examples. These are the two different roles. This role is a user writer, and this role is user publisher. So these two users have two different roles. So as we know, roles define what the user can see and do, so what they cannot do. So in this situation, for the role writer, uh, the writer can access the whole table. That means they can actually see the all the records, and the writer cannot access the field 3, in this case this one, and then the writer can actually access all the fields. So even though the writer can access all the fields in a row in the table, because the ACL says that the writer have no access to field 3, so when the writer accesses this record in the table incident, he has access to the table, he has access to all the records, he can see these two fields in any record, but he cannot actually see the field 3, in this case, the location field. But when you come to the publisher has access to the field 3, but have no access to all the fields. So what happens in this case? The publisher can actually access all the records in the table, but cannot see any other fields except the location field. So this is a very easy but very important concept that I try to understand and put together this diagram, and I hope you can understand it. So I think I'm done with this mind map, and then there is a lab that I have to do as part of this module. I will go through the lab and then explain what I do, and that would cover the concept of implementing the security for the loaner request application that I'm building as part of this course. Before I start working on the lab, I need to understand the lab objective. So the lab objective is to create two roles. One is admin, and they are fulfillers, and the user who is a requester. So the admin should be able to create new loaner requests, see all loaner request modules, read, edit, and delete all loaner request records, use all loaner request views. That is what the admin should be able to do. That fulfiller persona should be able to do. And for the user role or requester persona, they should be able to create new loaner requests, see only the create new and open loaner request modules, read loaner requests in which the user is in the requested for field. I mean, that means the user should not be seeing any other loaner requests in the instance. And the user should only see those loaner request records in the self-service view, not in the default view. And I also finally wanted to test if a user logs in with no specific roles, like no admin role or no user role, just any other ServiceNow general user, that person should not be able to see any of these loaner request application. I mean, no menu access, no module, no field, no row. I'm in the studio and then opening my loaner request application, Boston Ramesh loaner request. I'm creating a role for admin from the create application file. I created the role. This is called admin, and then it is going to create an automatically the name, and then I put the description, users who administer the loaner request application. Now I click on the save. After I save it, I see all the related tabs here. Now I added the existing loaner request user role to this admin role. So the reason behind this is that we are giving the admin the same privileges of the loaner requester because the admin should be able to see and do exactly what the loaner requester does so that they can help the loaner request process. Now I'm creating a group. I'm back to the ServiceNow main browser window, and then I'm looking at user administration, users, and groups. So I'll be creating a new group. So I have created the new group called loaner request admins, and then added a role that is we just created just before this, the admin role to this loaner request admins group. Now I need to add this group to the existing users. In this case, I will be adding system administrator, and as per the lab, Fred Luddy's profile to this group. I'm just opening the system administrator user record. Then I will be adding system administrator to admin role. I added loaner request admins group to system administrator profile. So it should bring It should show that loaner request admins. Now system administrator is part of the loaner request admins group. So I'm going to update system administrator, and I will do the same thing for Fred Leddy. So I will go to Fred Leddy, edit, select for the group loaner, and then put him in the admins group. I'll come here. It should have loaner request admins group. Gonna refresh. Yeah, loaner request admins is added. So then update this user as well. The next step is to control these modules access only given to the admins. So in this case, all is where only this module will display all the records. So we are restricting the admins to access to this module and not for the requesters. So I'm going to open this. I just added the admin role to this module. That means only admins can access this particular module. I did the same thing for open unassigned and closed module. So only admins can access closed or all or open unassigned. Now the next step is to create ACLs. So to do that, we need to elevate the user admin permissions. So I'm going to do the security admin and update it. Now we can go to the studio to change the ACLs. For example, if I open the read permission, that's access control. Now I am able to see everything is editable. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do that. Everything will be in the read-only mode. I opened the access control for the read operation. I removed the existing one, which is available for all users. I added only this read access for admins. Now later we will provide read access to the regular users who are the requesters with a specific condition so that they only see what they create. I did the same thing for the delete ACL, removed the existing one and then added the admin role. Only admins can do the delete operation. Next, I created a new access control. This is done using create and then access control. This is how I created it. And after created it, I selected the table, which is the loaner request, and then selected none. This is basically what we have seen in the mind map. The table.none means we are providing access to at the table level. Now allow read for records. This is a row level access. That condition is when the condition evaluates to true. What is that condition? What we are saying, this condition is when a user logs in, this ACL will evaluate that whatever there may be a whole number of records in this table, but this ACL will only give access to the logged in user. It is dynamic me. That means whoever the logged in user at that in that session. If the requested for field is set to that logged in user, then only that record will be displayed to the user in the list view. I have created one more ACL in this time. This is going to do the same thing, but we are controlling using a JavaScript. So this is going to prevent any issues when a loaner request is being created by non-admin users. Now I have created a new view rule. So this rule is basically going to force the requester when they are creating a new loaner request to see only the self-service view. So this script is going to check if the role is not an admin role of the logged in user in the session, then show the ESS, which is the self-service view. Now I'm going to test how these ACLs are going to work for admins and requesters. So let me go ahead and check Fred. Now Fred is able to see all of the modules under the loaner request application. This is application menu, loaner request, and then create new, open, and all of them are available. Now I impersonated as Beth. Beth is a requester, so based on our ACL permissions, Beth has only access to create new loan request or open the existing requests that Beth has created. So let's go ahead and create a new loaner request, requester for Beth. I created a loaner request as Beth, and then when I go and see in this module, the open, this is going to list all the records. There may be few other records in this table, but Beth can only see what Beth is created. So if you see, we have created a rule in the ACL. This table will only display in this list view only records that were created by Beth. Now I impersonated as another user, Able Tutor. He does not have any role in this instance. He's not an admin or he's not a loaner requester. So without those two roles, he will not be able to see the loaner request application here. So that's what is happening here. So I wanted to quickly check if Beth has only available view of self-service view. So that's what's the view right now. That's a view available for her. So we are restricting for the loaner requesters to see their requests in the self-service view. That is what we are enforcing them to see. Now I have completed all the required work for this lab. The next step is to commit my changes to the GitLab I already configured for this application. So I come to the studio and select the source control and click on the commit changes. After several minutes, all the changes were loaded. So there were a bunch of changes that we did. And so I'm going to select every single bit of it, 14 out of 14. One is for Fidelity, another for System Administrator, and all update sets. So I'm going to click Continue here, and I'm going to say loaner request application with module 5 labs completed. All right, so I'm going to just commit these 14 files and it should be okay. And everything is successful. All the files are now updated to the GitLab and I should be all set with that. I hope you found this video useful and informational. Thank you for watching. If you like this series, please like and subscribe to the Boston Ramesh channel. If you have already subscribed, thank you very much for your support. I'll see you in my next video on day 23. Until then, bye.